All right, welcome to Critical Weight Theory, where sometimes I bring you the stories behind protest, power, and people in motion. I'm your host, Wade, and today I'm looking back at what happened in Santa Monica on June 14th, 2025, a day branded nationwide as No King's Day. Well, not just nationwide, but internationally. And why Santa Monica? Well, not only is it a noteworthy place, but it's also basically one of the places that Republicans hate the most. So it packs a little bit of an extra wallop to focus on what happened there, right? They're trash talking California all the time because they're idiots. They don't understand that, you know, California is actually in some ways superior to other states, including a lot of red states, and that's despite the constant Hollywood bashing and all of that. There are American citizens who live in California who are actually just as fine as citizens anywhere else. And all of that kind of stuff. They pay their taxes and, they just lead relatively normal lives. And what do you know? They are American citizens and all that stuff. So, picture this: thousands of people filling Palisades Park, stretching along Ocean and Montana Avenues. Signs read, "Reclaim the streets," and "Workers over billionaires." Voices carried chants of defiance against these Trump era immigration policies and federal raids. The atmosphere is spirited, disciplined, and above all, nonviolent. Or I should say, the atmosphere was, to keep the past tense going, but you know what I'm getting at here. This was Santa Monica's contribution to a synchronized national protest. And again, it was to some degree international. I'm sure there were a lot of people also who were spiritually aligned with these protests across the world. And across more than 2,100 US cities, and even in US territories and international locations, like I said, over 5 million people joined. The call was simple: no kings, a rejection of authoritarian displays of power, symbolically timed against Trump's heavily militarized parade in DC, which was complete with soldiers, vehicles, helicopters, bands, and, of course, a healthy dose of human stupidity. And now, critics have long accused, anarchist inspired movements of being disorganized or alienating. You've heard the complaints. What about leadership? Where's the list of demands? It's all this radical language. Is that going to be too much for mainstream Americans? But the spirit in Santa Monica told a different story. From this lens, the movement wasn't chaotic, it was grassroots, decentralized democracy in action, power rising up everywhere, not handed down from above. And the city knew the stakes. With memories of 2020's unrest still close, Santa Monica authorities prepared extensively. Streets were closed, every officer was put on tactical alert, and rapid response teams stood by. But officials also drew clear lines. Immigration enforcement was off the table, peaceful dissent would be respected, and only criminal acts, things like vandalism or outright rioting, would face prosecution. The municipal code even spelled out banned items from frozen bottles to traffic cones. Organizers were serious about keeping this a disciplined matter. So the crowd chanted "No Kings," and they had their message heard. And political figures like State Senator Ben Allen stepped up to speak. But the heart of the event wasn't about elected officials, it was about community dissent, disciplined and confrontational in a nonviolent way. Organizers understood that symbolism matters, so on Flag Day, on Trump's birthday, They staged a counter spectacle, mass resistance against militarism, a direct challenge to narratives of strength defined by parades and displays of force. When you think about it, it wasn't just a protest, it was a refusal of the state's script, rejecting centralized authority, rejecting spectacle, and replacing with coordinated grassroots power. And from Hong Kong's umbrella movement to Kuwait's Blue Revolution, you can see the lineage. But in Santa Monica on June 14th, it took shape as a peaceful act of prescient defiance, organized, aware, nonviolent, and sharp with political critique. So that's just a little bit of a snapshot of what happened, and I am still running a No Kings protest podcast here in some ways. I'm doing my small little part to some degree. Santa Monica's No King's Day reminds us that democracy isn't only at the ballot box. Sometimes it rises up in the streets, orderly, disciplined, and unwilling to be ignored. So thanks for listening. Until next time, stay engaged, stay critical, and remember, no kings.